You are about to enter the Ghostly Archives. Welcome, everyone. We are about to go live on the Ghostly Archives podcast. I have an amazing guest for you tonight, as usual. But while we're waiting for everyone to stream in, you can help the podcast grow by doing a few clicks and giving a little bit of your time. So remember, while you're waiting for the live stream to start, go over and subscribe to your favorite platform, give the content a like, thumbs up, and make sure to share that content on your social media or share it from the platform you're viewing it on. And also, go to the audio podcast platform of your choice and give us 5 stars, especially on iTunes. That helps the show up in the ratings and it helps people become aware of us. So, hang tight, got about another minute, and we'll be right with you with tonight's special guest. Oh, here we are. Welcome to the Ghostly, or I shouldn't say the Ghostly Archives because it's plural. It should just be Ghostly Archives because that makes more sense. I'm pretty sure that it does. All right, so here we are, and we're just doing a little bit of a roundtable. I don't have any big plan, but we were talking about conspiracy theories and directed energy weapons before. So I've got Jerry Cthulhu and NIISH from mentee podcast coughing here in the background.
I thought it was off. I thought I was muted. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Dude.
I'm looking at things as you're backstage. I'm like, oh, I took my eyes away for a second.
If you guys haven't known, that's all good. I was like, I'm just like, that's our special.
Day.
That's our special sound effects.
I'll go sit in the corner and feel shame.
It's all good. I wasn't expecting it, and I was like, oh.
Kind of gave me a start there, Jer.
All right. So how have you guys been doing? What's been going on with Nux Mentee?
I think we've done one of those in 3 years.
We haven't. We take
I'm sorry,
flowers to the grave.
The obelisk. I'm stuck on the other name for some reason.
What's a good name?
It's going.
The obelisk just trickles along. When we get guests, we go live. Otherwise, we don't worry about it. We're that casual.
Yeah.
We're so super casual.
So the amount of super interesting people that we want to talk to is just not very large.
I hear you.
And the people that I want to talk to these days don't ever answer me. So
it is not easy getting people on shows these days. I think it got harder.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good luck getting Jordan Peterson on now.
Yeah, right. And I reached out to him
Early.
6 years ago, 5,
Yeah.
7 years ago. Like when we started the show, I really wanted to have him on the show. I thought he'd be a great guest.
I did
Yeah.
too.
I
Yeah.
actually met him.
Yeah.
His father-in-law was a client when I worked in senior care. Pretty normal family, really polite. His daughter was really, really polite and really nice. So I mean,
Michaela.
yeah, she was
Yeah.
there. It was Christmas time, and she was super, super sweet and super polite. I mean, that doesn't mean that I agree with everything they do or say or whatever. I'm, like anybody, you can't agree with everything. But I will say she was she could have been really rude to me. I was just, I was just working in senior care, but she was super, super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, and that says a lot. I'm not a fan of Jordan's anymore, but I was back then. I think he made some left turns for me, and so I don't know, somewhere along the line. But I will say, I gained respect for him again when he started standing up against all the crap.
It was that purple suit, wasn't it?
I'm not sure what it was, and I can't even remember why I was like, I'm over him. And then I was like, oh, I think I like him again. And so I don't even know. I just remember
there was a lot of anti-Jordan Peterson backlash and bad mouthing everywhere, which put a bad taste on a lot of people's mouths, and that might have been what you did. What
it was
caused that?
stuff he was saying.
Yeah.
I was just like, and I'm so, it was because I was attracted to him because of the Jung material, and I've literally read the library of Jung, and I was one of those nerds that read through his indices. I read all those books. And so I feel like I have an understanding of Jung away from Jungians. And I get really pissy when I hear Jungians talking. I'm like, have you read their work? Have you read his works? Did you read the indices? And
it's Jung from a Freudian perspective.
Exactly. And so that's where my distaste fell in.
I don't even want to go with that. I've been reading a lot of stuff on Freud and how he was kind of a pervert. Essentially. I just to sum it in what blunt as I can, as I am sometimes.
In the good old days when you could be like, like he got away with it.
I know. And what's really interesting is that when it comes to like Jordan Peterson, here's what I felt is I feel like Jordan Peterson's becoming a caricature of himself.
Yeah.
That's what I said to my husband, and he agreed with me. I said, I'm finding myself, it's not that I like listening to his wisdom, but I'm finding myself less relatable to his public figure because it's looking, especially with those weird suits, he's starting to become a caricature. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that.
I haven't seen the weird suits, but it's, I don't know, but I did like when he started standing up against the system for forcing stuff on everyone. And I did like that. That brought me back in. I was like, okay, this I find of value, a man using his platform to kind of question this narrative. So that brought me back in.
Well, and so he should, because the narrative in Canada is crazier than I just had.
Canada.
Have people. Oh, Canada. I feel embarrassed for being a Canadian sometimes because I had a friend, and we got a video of Jordan here. I'll pop it up after I say this. I've had a friend message me and tell me all the stuff that's happening with, and I have to be careful on even X saying the S word, basically unaliving you. I was actually banned for 3 days because of saying the actual S word. They're made pods. They're made pods, and they're literally offering them for everything and anything. Like multiple of our friends, they had like diseases that were treatable or chronic illnesses, and they were offered the option to jump in a pod and die.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely it's actually cartoonish. I mean, it's so hard to believe. And oh my goodness, he is getting extreme.
That's what I mean about. And
that's just one of them.
He's had somebody make it for him, so he didn't actually make the suit. Someone's made it for him. and he's wearing them, but it still looks a little. It's starting, and then there was a Christmas picture of them all standing by the
Oh
tree and
my
stuff.
goodness.
And he's looking more like he's like Hugh Hefner in this robe, and I'm like, oh, the guy's turning into a caricature. It's getting a little strange.
He is getting eccentric. I love eccentric, but I'm not necessarily in love with his eccentric taste. But that is, yeah, he's going full on.
I know. Maybe
I
he's
didn't realize
having.
he was completely gray now too.
Yeah, maybe he's having a dark night of the soul, huh?
How
No,
old
he
is
had.
how old is he?
He's
got
in the 50s, late 50s.
no. He looks older than that.
He is.
He's in his 60s.
You know what? We've got a good audience tonight. I've never had 89 people watching my show at the same time. We have a
61.
wonderful 89 people.
Another one from me, Jer.
61.
Thank you. Everybody who's watching on X, I thank you very much. Please remember to subscribe. I'm actually going to, I have all you guys here. Also, please don't forget to go over to my guest site on YouTube. I have Nox Mente, but their new show is called The Obelisk, and there is the link. So please don't forget to subscribe to
our current
Jer
show.
NIISH, the current show. It could change. It could
become
the blue tarp.
We're almost at that point. We're almost at that point where we need to rebrand.
I'm seriously. I'm going to have, instead of a tinfoil hat, I'm going to wear a blue tarpaulin hat.
Blue tarp.
And I want to show everybody on X a video. It's a do. Now some people are really skeptical of this. I've got to add a sauce, but I found this little video. Let's see if I can share it here. We're all going to talk to it. It shows. Watch this over and over again. It replays it. What do you?
Looks like lightning.
It looked like lightning to you?
Yeah.
They're saying that it's lightning. I know. It could very much be lightning. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, and the only reason I say lightning is because of the camera anomaly in the flash right before the fire.
Yeah.
So I filmed a lot of lightning, and with a digital camera, you get these. It's hard to describe, like these bands of bright light that dim out the picture.
Right.
So I saw that in that video, and that's why I would say it looks like lightning.
Well, did you see the video of Biden talking about the fires? I think in Texas or something. He said something about the wrong roof color, and everybody on X just went nuts.
But it was taken out of context. I mean,
what was the context?
I don't remember. I don't remember now. I'm sorry.
If you're going to say that, we need the context.
I could look it up.
Here, okay.
That was just one portion
of it. Guys, I think I have a video of it.
Great.
I think I have a video.
We're going to lay this to rest.
If you fly over these areas that are burned to the ground, you'll see in the midst of 20 homes that are just totally destroyed, one home sitting there because it had the right roof on it.
Yeah, I remember now. Thank you.
So it seems like in context.
The context to what he was speaking about before that actual clip, that soundbite, was code, roofs being up to code, and having newer, more fire code, more environmentally friendly roofing and whatnot.
Okay, see, that changes the story.
Exactly.
It does.
That's why I said it was taken out. It's what he said, but it's not what we assign the meaning of the dues being protected by blue roofs to it. You know.
Well, I remember, so here's something that nobody seems to talk about, but so Russian blue quartz, Siberian blue quartz, is a lab created quartz crystal that in Russia in the 1980s. They made a fake village in Siberia, and they created this specific crystal to protect the Russian people and Russian citizens from being attacked by American tech, and I guess in space, or in altitude, and from lasers. And so at one point, and then it got decommissioned. So follow along with me here. And then the jewelry industry found there's a long story with Russian blue quartz. Siberian quartz is what it's called. And the New Agers found it, and it became a thing. But there's not a lot of information if you don't read or speak, or if you don't know Russian. But that was the origin story, and it was also part of how they would protect against some of the what is now known as Havana syndrome stuff. You can find hardly nothing on it. But I want to tell you, when I went Russian laser shopping in the Russian stores about 6 years ago, when you could get real lasers that would burn out stuff and protect you, when I was thinking frontline protection, get lasers that will kill people, move a hole right through their chest. They had different colors of lasers. So if you wanted the green laser, which had a specific charge to it, they had the counter for it. So you would wear, I think, blue. Or if you were going to use the red laser, they'd have the counter for it, and they tell you what to wear if this is the laser coming at you, so that it would counteract that particular laser's color. So when this stuff started to come through, the Lahaina and all these different lasers, I have never forgotten that Russian thing of getting lasers through Russia, because that's where you get the most badass ones. When you can't do it anymore. And they all had a correspondence to another color that canceled out the other one, that would save your life, literally save your life. And then it all started for me with that Siberian blue quartz, which is now very in the new age. And I actually have some of the original Siberian blue quartz, which is absolutely gone now. It's been a long time. I mean, they got it and put it on QVC with Suzanne Summers at one point. Yeah. And it's great. And I have some of that just to contrast what I have, which is the real deal. But there's a whole story, because when they got it, they located it, and they brought it to America. It was like a big drug deal. America was not having, the customs was not having it. But the guy found it because some shaman had a big chunk of it. It's real quartz, and it's buried down with huge amounts of cobalt. And it's the cobalt that has the power there. And I guess some remote shaman was using it in his healing ceremonies. He became quite famous for he'd call it the blue stone. And that's what caught the eye of the guy that was in Russia looking for gems for QVC. And it was a whole long narrative. There used to be an interview with him that I can't find. It might still be out there. And that was really the only information you could find on Siberian blue quartz, because the New Age took over and the real story got buried.
Wow.
But that's the true.
I heard that China, like even before the pandemic, I heard that China had these kind of laser weapons that they could focus at people and like literally fry them from a long distance, and they wouldn't ever know what happened to them. They would never know that they were just hit by. They would just be like.
Why I wanted lasers is because you can protect yourself from a very long distance, and longer than a lot of guns or boom booms. And so I wanted it for that line of defense, lasers, and then incoming closer stuff. And also, I know that people around the world are using them to take down. I never procured them. They were too expensive for me. And sadly, I didn't realize that we were actually going to get to this point of a firewall where we can't get anything really truly on the internet anymore out of America, and we can't definitely have a hard time even getting shungite out of Russia now. And so, which is where I get all my shungite. And I get certain things out of Russia that are from Russia. I want them out of Russia. I like Russian jet too. And I can't get Russian jet anymore through my friends, through the people I've been buying jet for 25 years from. And so they're just not letting it happen. So forget about lasers. And so this has become such a big deal now, and I think most Americans don't realize how hemmed in we are. We are absolutely under a firewall of knowledge. We're under a firewall of propaganda. We are completely controlled in almost every way, and most people don't realize it. And this is part of the sad truth with our food too.
I was actually just going to go to that. Like, most of us rely on this whole system of production, and I've never known anything but that. I'm going to be really honest. I've never never grew up growing a garden, even though maybe my grandmother or her grandmother did.
But look what they're doing with the Amish guy now. So they're trying to make it really difficult to get. They've been doing this for a while, and it's been a problem. I started hearing about it in the Mennonite circles because I have Mennonite friends, and then I started from there hearing about it in Amish circles over there in the Midwest. And I used to have my postal route was in an Amish area in Illinois, and I started to hear that they were getting picked on in these small communities. And my Mennonite friends were like, when they started to go for the Amish, they're like, what are they going to do? Throw a shoehorn at them? And so this has got to be over a decade now. They started to crack down on the raw milk, the raw honey, the raw stuff, all the raw stuff. And then it's led into now where they are trying to actually control the gardening process. And Doug and Stacy have been kind of following this one particular case, and they just put out a video yesterday or today. If Lynn is out there, Lynn could probably throw that into the chat for people. Hey,
Is this
Lynn,
the guy who got raided by the FDA cops or whatever?
Yeah, and it's been
arrested?
ongoing for his raw his real his good
store.
stuff.
Yeah.
If anyone knows Amish goods, they know the quality of Amish goods. They know the purity of Amish goods, and I personally have only had really wonderful interactions with the Amish people.
That guy's fight with, I think it's the USDA, right? I don't remember.
Or the FDA, one of them.
One of the two of them, but it's been going on for multiple years.
A few years, like 3 years or something.
Maybe longer. The guy's been in trouble for a while. He makes videos. He's on YouTube.
Go ahead, NIISH. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, they're dragging it out. He's got people that depend on his kefir and all this stuff, and he does make videos, Jerry.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're trying to silence him on that front too, but they're trying to make it so he can't even have a garden, so that he can't have cows and stuff. Like the stuff I was just listening to today to get caught up is atrocious. And this is not going to just stay in Amish land, Pennsylvania.
It's not. It's already progressing to, I mean, the propaganda, put it this way, the propaganda in the news, the media has started about how gardening has a larger carbon footprint than buying food at the store.
Which is absurd.
Of course it is. But that's the messaging we're starting to see. The WEF has come out and said, everything they've said, that taking care of yourself and being self-sustainable is bad for the world, for the environment.
So here's there's a comment saying, he sent raw milk out of state. 2 people got listeria and both were in the hospital and 1 died. In state, raw milk is all over the place. That's
so with that, and today, like this week in court, they had separated all his products from other products. None of his products tested, and hi Dave Paxson, that's Dave Paxson. None of his products got had any listeria in them at all. Literally all of his products came up clean for everything. And the listeria thing was basically a cover story to wipe him out. It had nothing to do with his products. They store them all in the same, when they confiscate them, they store them in the same thing. This came out in detail today it came out in detail for us today. I don't know if it was Monday or last week, but it came out. The reality of that came out, and that's been a big sham this whole time that they've used. But think about all the recalls from all the big companies like Kraft and all them.
Right.
Constantly have listeria or botulism
Or E. coli.
or hepatitis or all this stuff constantly.
So, I mean, I can guess why they want to control everything. But I mean, it seems really eccentric, and they never had this need to control 20 or 30 years ago, but suddenly, even, they have this they obviously have a plan and an agenda, but like, is there like an energy? Where is this coming from? This sudden authoritarianism we're seeing in the past 20 years on food. Is it because of the internet, or what's going on?
They are killing us. They want to kill us off, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's violent delights. It's Westworld, violent delights. And this is called the Hunt Club, and they're enjoying this process. This has nothing to do with money. Money is not what you follow here. These people that run this show that I call non-human, you can call them demons if you want, are out here. This is the real state of war. The real state of the Third World War, if you want to call it that, is on this level. It's not with boom booms. It's with strontium and barium and possibly what we're all dealing with right now with our sleepiness and exhaustion, which would be lithium in the air, which is in some places the lithium content has gone way up. And it's this weather we're seeing, these lasers from above creating these fires. It's all this stuff that's going on, and it is absolutely a war, and the war's on us. And those out there that came in from the top all the way down to the bottom are non-human, and they're in human bodies. That's how we see them. That's how they parasited in here, the interdimensional or extra dimensional.
So
I do not think they're from like Mars or Delta Reticuli or another planet.
Is this like they live? Is there a way we can know who they are? Obviously, I've got actually a really funny video of.
So you think the orchestrators of nonsense are actual humans, or do you think they're humans controlled by outside entities?
I think they're possessed by outside entities, and there may be humans working with them.
Sure,
but I don't think they're not us, and they're in human bodies. So we could think about V. Remember V, the series V?
Yeah.
So, I don't know exactly how it all plays out, but they're not like us.
They're like the Hitler Youth.
I shudder to call us humans because I think we're the actual aliens here, but they don't have empathy. They don't have compassion. They don't have a sense of art and higher beauty. They are not here for that. And there's a lot of different ways we could parse this out. But the clear thing is they're out for us. If the people out there can't see that you're actually being killed off one way or another by a million different ways, the fluoride in your toothpaste, all of it, then I don't know what to tell you. They are actually doing us off, and they're doing it in a methodical, seductive to them, sadistic to us way. So what are we looking at?
I'm about to play a video in a few seconds. A little bit of humor that ties into what you're saying, just to give everybody a humor. It's a dark sort of thing. Here we go.
I am the Emperor.
They're like, yeah.
The Skeksis. I love the Dark Crystal so much.
Okay, when I popped it on, I didn't know it was going to pop on like that. I thought it was going to pause. So I didn't mean for it to interrupt what you were saying. I was like, oh shit.
Oh no, I love it.
I'm so sorry.
You can interrupt me with the Dark Crystal anytime. I think it's so brilliant.
I'm going to be honest, that movie terrified me when I was little.
I didn't see it when I was little. I saw it when I was an adult, and I was dumbfounded by how profound it was. Absolutely profound. Jim Henson's magic, and that movie really brings so much narrative, or I guess depth, to a lot of the stuff that we see going on now, especially when we look at old civilizations that we're wondering how that happened and all this stuff. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and
you don't think that was some not a cry for help, but exposure of what he found in Hollywood in general?
Right.
Well, he did die young.
Allegorical, yeah. Well, it was a weird cancer.
Well, I'll tell you what, Agra is one of my favorite heroines. I love Agra.
I can't remember any characters.
From the Dark Crystal, Agra.
The female? Yeah.
Yeah, the weird one, the Capricorn-like one. She's so fat because she has the Capricorn horns. I love her so much. Oh my God, she's awesome. I use her as an icon on like Netflix and stuff. She's me.
That's great, but it's so interesting. I'm always wondering whether, life imitates art or art's imitating a future they know that's coming. Like, I can never tell. And that's sort of like those are like the lizard family that's kind of controlling everything. Like they're one of them.
That's what's so brilliant with those Skeksis is that I think when people it's at Melissa, that is just such a perfect way, because I think that's how I see them, is some sort of dried up old lizardy, that's how I see them. And when I think about reptilians, I kind of think of them in that way, and how they in the Dark Crystal have everything else kind of working for them. They're not doing a lot of the dirty work. Some of them, there's the general and all that, but they've got their little armies of creepy crawlies.
And isn't it so fun? Like when you watch that video, they're all just like, he's gonna be dead. Who gets the power?
Chamberlain. I can't even. I just woke up, so I can't even get my voice up that high. But I love Chamberlain. He's the Judas.
Yes, of course.
Sells them out.
But I mean, when you're a family raised to be lizardy and cutthroat and no empathy, that's what you get for kids or followers or a kingdom. They're all just vying for you to die because that's who they've been trained to become.
Oh yeah. Well, I've seen this in just normal families, and I always try to tell a lot of people, I have seen everyone's like, well, my sister wouldn't do that, or my brother wouldn't do that, or anything. I have seen more families, and my first one of my boyfriends back in the day worked for hospice, and Kate Colburn was a good friend of mine who was the director of hospice for a while, and so I've just seen a lot of after death drama with families that you thought were like so tight, and then as soon as they're cold, they're already fighting over everything. Everything. And I've seen it in my personal family. I've never gotten an inheritance, and yet stuff has been willed to me and named to me and all this, because they come in and they get nasty, they lawyer up, they think they're going to get something, and a lot of times in my cases they did, because I didn't fight back, because first of all, I'm in mourning. Second of all, I just can't have blood money on my hand. I'm not going to fight over money. Sorry. I will never fight over money. I will bitch about it, but I won't fight about it. And I've just seen good families go really bad when they think they have something to gain. And then you times it with these kinds of families that have insane amounts of assets, right? And power that comes with it. You can only imagine.
Well, I mean, I don't even talk to my family anymore, and I've seen it play out in the same thing, fighting over, my grandmother's pension check and using her for that, and then drugs, and then they were, there was just a little bit of inheritance, and I got the chop, like none came to me, and I'm like, I don't even care. I don't even need it. They'll have it spent in 2 seconds and they'll be broke again. So whatever.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. And I don't talk to any of them anymore because they were so in denial of how messed up and how manipulative they were. And they all talk, oh, I miss you, I love you. And I'm like, yeah, you talk to them, and they'll be playing the same old games.
Yeah,
and it's
same
like,
here.
what do I call it? They call it like violent. Everyone's like, oh, men are violence. No, it's generational dysfunction. It's generational violence that you're inheriting. And someone's got to cut the cord.
That was me. I cut the cord. I was like, I'm not having it. When my mom died, it was like, we are parting ways. We are all parting ways. And I've never looked back. They
Good.
all have to live with what they did.
Yeah. And there are some people who can live with it and cut off. But do you guys think with all this food and control and all this crazy stuff that's happening, do you think we're kind of, as a nation, as a Western civilization, kind of going through our little own dark night of a soul where we're going through a really dark period that I could have never foreseen when I was younger?
Girl, Dark Night of the Soul is saying it lightly. That's mild. That's the PG version.
It's the apocalypse.
In the truest sense.
In the truest sense, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, you guys feel free to elaborate on what you think is going on.
I forgot who I was talking to about this yesterday. Might have been someone at work, but that they're like, oh, these cycles are ending right now, and I think it's causing a lot of psychic trauma for whatever reason. For the United States specifically, like we are now in our Pluto return. So
what does that mean?
It means that basically all the falsehoods that have led up to this moment will be revealed for everyone to see. Revelation, yeah. The age of Aquarius apparently is starting or going to start or has started. Nobody really knows because it's, myth.
My husband is an Aquarius. My mother was an Aquarius. Oh my!
I don't think that matters. It's the
I know it's a bigger scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know what you mean.
So we got that going on. All these cycles are ending. There's the physical turmoil of the planet. There's volcanoes going off everywhere, earthquakes. We're getting to the peak of the grand solar minimum in 2025. So we're building up to that. All that energy is building up. There's just a lot of psychic energy in the world right now. And I think it's stressing people out and it's making things crazy.
It's making me sick.
That too. It's making people sick. And I'd love to hear what else NIISH can add to that, or if I'm wrong, or...
I just have one comment from Sir Rickster. He says he thinks that UFOs and lizard people are demons and the fallen angels. You know the Book of Enoch? Those angels.
Yeah.
But those are just stories.
Yeah, but those are templates, and those templates work. And that's the thing. There is something inside the human form that is not like us, that's in the controlling cast of the world, that is in control and creating this situation that we're in the Western world. And they are not us. They are something other than us. They are not human. I see it as clear as I see anything else. I've always been gifted with this. And as I've been saying all these years, I'm continuing to see that nothing seems to be shifting that. If you take out, there doesn't seem to be any real solid answers with how crazy all this is until you start plugging in the woo. You start plugging in the woo-woo, and things start to kind of make sense. And then once you start doing that and you start looking into the actual receipts and compiled information from these people, the stuff they actually say at their conventions, at their get-togethers, and all that, it starts to create a bigger picture of what's going on. And again, they don't even like us. They don't consider themselves like us. They are not us, and we are not them. So if you want to just break it down to the easiest talking point, they call us useless eaters. But see, they're still separating us from them. And I can separate the us from them by the fact that they have no spark. I can see it. I can see it. And anything that had compassion, a sense of decency, would not subdue others in the way that we are being subdued. It's been slow and steady, and it's a takedown. It's a takedown first and foremost of the women of the realm, of our wombs, and that is very, very obvious that that's what's going on. All this is following old school laws of power. Art of War, 48 Laws of Power, old school sacking a place, infiltration, and then getting in, mixed breeding, and then fully sacking the place. It's all war tactics. It all looks familiar. If you put that set of goggles on and look at it, it looks very familiar in playbook. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why this seems to be difficult for so many people to see it. It seems very clear and obvious to me, and it doesn't even need a psychic eye to see it. If you start to apply those kinds of logics to the moves that are being made towards us in the Western world.
Wow. I know, and it's very transhumanism.
Oh, absolutely.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, that is literally the trans agenda. The trans agenda is not just about transvestites. It's about this whole
transhumanism.
Yeah, and that's just part of it. And that's it's breaking down in small ways. Yes, Jer.
I was going to say that it is my opinion that the whole transhumanism agenda is one that is forwarded by these entities, whatever they are.
Yes.
Because they want their own bodies and don't have the will or power or energy or whatever to actually fully possess a human. But they could get into a robot body. Right?
I don't know. I think there is some people that they've possessed.
Yes.
Or they're at least influencing.
Yes. But they want their own bodies.
But I think that they're also pushing out. So for a long time, we talked about walk-ins. We hear about walk-ins.
Yeah.
And I think that's part and parcel for some of this. And I'm not saying that all walk-ins, I've always been suspicious of all that. But I'm not saying all walk-ins were necessarily, I'm going to use the word nefarious. However, I do think that same kind of principle is at play. And that same principle could be looked at through demonic possession, say through the Catholic lens as well. I do believe that, like in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and to really get a comprehensive idea of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you need to watch all three of those films, all the way up through the Nicole Kidman, the Invasion one. They're amazing, and they're telling you the truth, and it's been going on since last mid-century. And the thing is that that's a template for how these things are taken over. You're not actually growing a new pod. And I think that that's an important factor to remember with Hollywood, is it's going to give you an idea through some sort of hyperbolic or superbolic Hollywood Big Bang way, and at the kernel is the truth of what's actually happening. These things came through, and I'm starting to see, I had a chat with Howard Kotzvella that I'll get out at some point, and I'm starting to see, and I got him to say this, that cordyceps, like we saw in what was that series, Jer, the one with
Last of Us.
The Last of Us. So and those cordyceps have always creeped me out. But so Howard's talking about Morgellons as mycelium, right? Actual mushroom mycelium, and that the fruit of the mycelium, so remember, the mycelium is what spreads and moves around. And Jerry, you're
I know all about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so the fruit is what people pick and see, but they get into the cordyceps get in and control the body and conform to the body. And it's actually, so remember, we're talking about Morgellons. And I think that could be one way in which we could see some sort of weird expression through the fruiting of this. And then when we start looking at the clots in the cadavers, and these clots in some people that had a certain something,
the amyloid clots, the white ones.
Yeah. And so there's a whole bunch of new information that's coming out on them. They always wash out white, and they conform to the space they're given, but now some have been coming out looking very much kind of anthropomorphic, like xenomorphic. And there's some out there that are very weird and wicked looking. And I said from day one, even though I know there are 3 different shots, that one of those was going to be the one that turned people from one thing to another vis-a-vis these things in them. And then another one was just going to kill people off slowly I think I said 2 to 5 years. We're in that range. 10 years no longer because of the nature of spike proteins. And then there's the placebo. So I think all this is in effect right now. I don't think this is a one play situation, but I do believe our bodies, some of these bodies have been absolutely commandeered for these things, for these monsters.
Winona says in comment, interdimensional beings are definitely here. So
yes,
wow.
I agree with you, Winona.
Winona lives on where I used to live on Vancouver Island. She's actually a good friend of mine. She used to come to a gym I managed, and she was one of the, when I was talking about, I used to go to a wooded area where I'd walk, and it always creeped me out on one side. I'd have to go to the other side, on the other side of the highway. I always felt like something was watching me, and then I thought I was crazy. And she's my friend who said, oh, my family used to own all that land, and there's definitely something weird on that side that nobody likes, that watches people, and it's not like a human. And I was like, oh, and it's not a cougar. I was like, wow. so she's a really good reference for a lot of this stuff. I love it when she shows up on the shows. It's and I can never ever hike on that side of the woods. I just feel like someone's following me. It's so creepy.
You gotta trust that knowing, you know that.
I know. So definitely 100%. I wanted to I kind of wrote down these 5 sort of stages of dark night of the soul. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to read them out, and you can figure out where we are. Maybe people in different nations are at different points, but they said there's a major disruption, a triggering of events that affects you, which causes the second stage, which is loss of direction and hope. Then you kind of spiral into a rock bottom third stage. And then you kind of have your aha and your realization of the truth of what's really going on. Then you start doing spiritual study, and then you form into authentic living. How does that sound? Moment of silence.
As a template, or are you laying out what it's like?
I would say as like a process of when you're going through strife. Okay, and I think our nation really is going through strife, not necessarily as a template, but just as a process. But I don't know. I think people are different. I think all the people who are still watching MSNBC are probably not even triggered by events. There might be triggered by events, but they're just not even realizing that,
if they even hear about such events, right? Like 90% of what's actually going on never makes it to the mainstream news.
I don't know. I think I kind of go from rock bottom to realization of the truth to spiritual study, and then I go back up again and keep cycling and try to get out to authentic living. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's weird
I'm
because
stuck in the authentic living section, so
yeah, it's weird because it's like, especially with social media, you can't stop. Like you keep getting all these events thrown at you on
right.
purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to cause us to have a dark night of the soul because they are just throwing. They're always like, Trump is chaotic. I'm like, no, Trump isn't chaotic. You mofos are throwing the chaos and making all this crap up and going insane. You guys are causing the chaos and then
Right,
blaming it on him.
but they know that if they repeat things enough times, their loyal fan base will repeat it too and believe it,
Oh, thank God it's a
regardless of
dwindling fan base.
the veracity. It's crazy. It's crazy. I can't even talk to my dad about some things because it triggers him so much, and they're not even, controversial topics. Why is that?
Well, and neither Trump isn't this extremist. He's actually very moderate
Yeah,
in everything he's saying. There's nothing extreme about him. He like wants America from 1980s. What's
Trump.
extreme about that?
So Trump is a classic liberal Democrat from the 90s, 80s, a Clinton
Yeah.
Democrat. And like a lot of us, his political views have not changed. But the party has swung so far, the Democrats have swung so far to the left that we look like right wingers to them now. The moderates of the 90s look like right wingers today. Have you ever seen that meme that Elon Musk posted?
Which one was that?
About the Overton window.
Oh, yes. I don't know if I've seen the meme, but I know about the Overton window.
Find it.
I mean, that we're trying to shift it back and get some sense talked into these people, but every time you do, you're like, hey, we don't need to chop all of our children's genitals off and mutilate them. They're like, that's racist. That's transphobia.
I don't want to go there.
You know,
if genitals don't define gender, how does getting different ones affirm yours?
yeah. Well, here's the thing: is these extremely ridiculous progressive always whine. They always whine about the gender pay gap, and then they'll go and tell you there's no such thing as gender. So figure that one out.
Yeah, and like I said, don't start.
It's also crazy making. Like, try and figure any of it out.
The hypocrisy is done on purpose to keep people in a cognitive dissonant state. That's all it is.
But it's also, this is part of the Hunt Club. This is part of the game they're playing. That they're getting these things that are not us. They're playing with us. They're messing with us. They're enjoying this process. And this is not a money thing. This is called violent delights. And the more we get, the more so that they watch how much we'll take, how much someone will take, how much some group will take. And depending on the story, they can Waco it and slander it and all this in public or not. And they're just continuing to push it and see how far it can go and what could happen. It's a great big show. There's a great big club, and as we all know the line, we're not in that club. We're part of the show, and we don't realize that we're part of the show. And the problem is the show's getting very nasty, and it's going to be very, very scary because it is based on, and it's going to be moving deeper into some sort of genocidal, homicidal, bad situation the more they flood the Western world. And right now they have the Western people, the Western soul, which is many souls, many cultures, many, and they'll tell you, like critical race theory will tell you, ethnic whites don't have a culture. I call BS on that. I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I can go to Poland and get me some Poland sausages, child.
I was going to say, have these idiots been to Europe?
I mean, seriously. But it's in critical race theory. That's actually part of it. But what is going to happen that's getting ready to happen? Like right now, I was looking at statistics this week. 1 in 7 Americans is now one of the new immigrants. 1 in 7 since 2021. And I think we need to think really long and hard about what that means. And that's not even looking at places that have been totally overcome in Europe. And so much so that a lot of these, some of these smaller European countries are like, enough's enough. They've overruled us, the scales tipped. And like I said, the war is on females. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. It's on the womb, and it's on the Western female womb.
Yes, they don't want us to have any more of our white babies, do they? And the thing is, that's really interesting.
We don't even procreate that much, Melissa. We're not like having 10, 15 babies anymore.
I think there's even
go ahead, Jer.
There's more to the infertility idea here, though, because that could be a problem for which they have a solution ready. Artificial
they have those
wombs,
ecto wombs and all that. They have transhumanism,
cloning,
and they're going
robot
to keep,
kids. Yeah.
This is why they did a worldwide genetic scoop. They're going to keep a certain amount of genetics alive in a farm, in a small farm, to make sure there's a breeding pool. So some of us will be lucky enough to live and have our small farm life, but the rest of us, it's going to be a show, and they're controlling this whole situation. They don't need us. We are getting in the way, and clearly you can see, if you are looking, because we are only 3% of the world population. That's just how it is as far as
so we're a minority.
We are the real minority, unbeknownst to the way we've been told, and the rest of the world. Look around. You don't even need to be intelligent to see this.
You talking whitey or Americans?
I'm talking whitey. Americans are kind of mixed anyway.
I think it's 4% now.
Yeah, we're the minority.
And these
guys are globalists. These guys are globalists, so we have to hold them to their values because they look at things globally. So we have to claim minority status.
The whole equity or diversity thing, all that is just to blur everything, blur all the lines.
Of course it is.
Because the less prejudices you have, the more easily you'll accept your robot body.
Well, I think it goes way deeper than that. And I think a lot of these things that are already in human bodies that are not going to last them very long. And this is why
that too.
Why the robotics are really where they are now. Now, there are a lot of people out there that will tell you the robots are all fake. And all I can say is I know from being at Midway in Chicago, I know for doing modeling gigs for MIT. I know through Lockheed Martin, with my own physical eyes, saw very incredible robotics in the 1990s. Incredible robotics being in those circles. So the people telling you that that DARPA and stuff is fake, I just personally can't pull up to, because I saw them in the 90s, which has been decades ago. So but I know there are good people out there that I respect that say it's all AI, what we see out of DARPA and all that. And I'm not here to challenge anyone or convince anyone. I'm here to tell you what I see and what I experience. That's it. I don't care what you think. That's your business. But the real thing here is we are being genocided out. And you don't have to be a genius to look at all of Africa, all of the Middle East, all of Asia, and continue on and look at all the POC world, the people of color world, and then look at the tiny little bit of European ethnic whites and then the ones that are here in America and Canada. We are a tiny, tiny fraction of it, and yet we are the bad guys for every malady, bad thing, higher
Yeah.
culture, and now they're taking over all our stories. Our stories now are all POC stories. Our heroes and heroines in literature and royal families and mythologies are now POC. And I'm not here as this should not be a racist thing. I should not have to lay down cards to say, oh, I have this in my blood, so I can say this. We need to understand that we are being erased out of the narrative, period, point blank.
Why do you think we are? Why is the target white European?
I'm not sure,
people?
but the way we are going now, in 100 years, that it'll be like people fighting over the 3% Norwegian in them. There won't be any Norway. There'll be Pakistan is Norway, right? You'll go to Norway and you won't find ethnic Norwegians. You'll find mixed blood
Yeah.
Norwegians. You'll go to Sweden, the same thing. You won't have these. You'll go to Poland and the same thing, and Denmark and England and Scotland and Ireland. It's all going to be all these different POC nations, and the white people of them are going to be gone. And they've let you know this, that the Scottish prime minister, whatever the hell he is, telling the Scottish people they're too Scottish. Melissa, can you imagine going to Syria telling the Syrian people they're too Syrian? I mean, come on, that would never play anywhere else. And all you have to do is the math, how little we are, how few we are, and how many they are. And they're raping our girls. Then we have the trans agenda, where all of our girls are getting their breasts cut off, and the hormone blockers, and the little boys are all this. We are absolutely looking at a real genocide. This is not the little genocides they're talking about everywhere else. This is a major genocide of ethnic whites.
On a spiritual level, where is this? Is this like Satan? Is like, who's pushing this on a level beneath physical? This person's in charge and this person's in charge. Because when something this big's going on, there's something bigger to it than just, oh, the Saudi Arabians don't want us or Islam wants us. There's some bigger, biblical, universal plan.
Well, I think of, like, when we start talking about stuff on that level, I think of like the Satan. And so, first of all, we got to get straight here. The satanic, the Church of Satan is not a player here. It's like a cosplay organization. It died with Anton LaVey. In my opinion, they don't have any teeth as far as I'm concerned. The Satanic Temple has a little more juice to them. They seem to legitimately understand and do magic. And the Temple of Set and all that has definite juice. But that said, the real Satanists out there, the real bad guys out there, which are our politicians, our leading doctors and scientists that have been bought and paid for, those kinds of Satanists that are playing for that move, that are making these moves. I think that Satan is part of an entity that is actually an organization. And remember, when they did this to companies, and they made companies, they gave them the power of the entity. Just like, remember when they gave Sophia citizenship, and they told her, Sophia the AI, that she's a person and she has citizenship and she has a right to vote, etc. This is the nature of the satanic overlord that we're seeing. And the rituals through child sacrifices and stuff, the real Satanists are people like Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and those are the puppet heads. But that's what you're looking at, not the goth kid down the street, not the person who's got exceptional style that looks like, Eva from Penny Dreadful. Come on, people.
No, that's right. They're real nefarious people. They are the ones who hold the secret parties where, children and minors are smuggled in for whatever nefarious weird reason, or all the rich and elite people are meeting in front of a giant owl effigy, doing some kind of bizarre,
cremation of care ritual, it's called.
Yeah. Oh, cremation of care.
Yeah. Talking about the Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, Bohemian Grove.
Yes.
And all that stuff, that was kind of, that's there, but there's so much other stuff going on, and that's there to be seen, and that got us to where we are. But this organization is massive, and it's definitely malignant on the field, or in the field, and we're seeing now we're seeing how deep into this we are. We're not just a little bit into this. We're deep
Right.
into this, and we're at, I think, past the critical point. I think we're past the tipping point.
Yeah. So if we're having a realization of this truth, like right now, I'm sure many of us who haven't really thought about it, might be having a realization of truth, is sort of the antidote to a lot of this, your spiritual studying. Like, are people spiritually void? Have white European civilization just become so lax and spiritually void that they've just allowed this to sneak past them? Like, what's happening? Like, do we have to, is there an antidote, or what the hell?
I think there's a mind control at play here, and I think that I have a lot to say on this that I just don't think it's very popular or fun to hear. Like, anything I'm saying is popular or fun to hear, but I think this is a very complex takedown that's been a long time in the working, and this needs a presentation so that you can see how we got here through the means in which we got here. And so we need to pull up that information from those people and these different narratives that played out historically, because it's hard to just lay down the hypothesis without showing the receipts when we get to this level of it. But I
Right.
do, at the base of this, I think that the ethnic white soul or mind has been deeply parasited, not in the way of like demonic possession, but taken over with like a Wetiko type thing, or a brain entrainment, basically MK Ultra, if you want to go on that level.
Yeah, I mean, we are being convinced to hate ourselves so much that if we just even have chronic diseases, which is probably from the food they're giving us, they're, up in Canada, they're saying, here's a maid pod. And people are like, okay, they might say no, but some people are seriously considering unaliving, just in case I've already been banned for saying the S word on X for 3 days. So they're seriously considering, they're just like, yeah, I'm not worth anything. I'll just die. And I'm like, this is crazy. What's going on? This is like crazier than I've ever seen. Like, how can you just not love your life to the level that you're just going to sit in this damn pod?
Well,
and
that's
give
the
up?
thing.
Sorry.
Go on, Jerry, because
I saw a post yesterday or today about how Canada decriminalized drugs. Like, I think it was in Ontario or Toronto. I don't remember where. I apologize. In one of the provinces, they've decriminalized all, like, every drug, heroin, cocaine, whatnot.
It's probably British Columbia.
Maybe.
Coast.
Maybe. I thought it was East Coast, but I could be wrong.
It could be.
Anyway, now they're having drug problems, and the Parliament up there is looking at expanding MAID to include drug addiction as a acceptable reason for use. They're looking to expand it to accept drug addiction as a reason for wanting it.
Yeah,
or prescribed, however you get it.
That Trudeau is so incompetent and he spent so much money on all of this stuff. He's such a nonce that they're like, oh, we don't really want to pay. How do we solve this solution? Oh, well, we'll just give them these pods. And they actually don't have enough doctors. A lot of doctors are refusing to do. And they're trying to retrain them to make them want to put people in pods.
Well, see, this is a humiliation factor because they're already killing us with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this is more humiliation. This is more hunt club stuff. And I think getting back to your question, I think the soul, so like look at Saxony and all this, where Odin, the soul of the people there, where Odin is the big god archetype, right? Odin got sparked in the Second War, and Odin came alive. The people had been downtrodden, and I'm not going to get into all the receipts here, but the receipts are there. They had been downtrodden from the First World War and then beaten down into poverty and all this stuff. And finally, the soul of the Saxony people, the soul of these people rose up. And so what Jung called it was the spark. I can't remember the exact word he said, but it was basically waking up the archetype, waking up Odin within the soul of the people. And see, somewhere along the line, I thought, okay, so maybe that will happen. Maybe waking up the archetypes, the sleeping archetypes for the ethnic white groups, and um, and possibly this could happen. And it's not happening. It's happening in very small clusters, and it's not happening enough. It's not coherent enough. It could be organized, but we can't even say white right now without everyone that wants to call us racist for saying white, let alone
Yes.
ethnic white. You can't say those words. And God forbid you say you're being genocided when the proof is in the pudding all around us. It's absolutely could
Yeah.
not be more obvious. And so this is what's happened to the soul of ethnic white people. They have been absolutely brain entrained and conditioned to bend the knee. And we saw this ridiculousness during that outbreak with the jabby jab jab, and where they were on their knees licking boots, and shit, white women were shaving their heads, and just
Ugh.
this whole fiasco of humiliation on an ethnic population that is very small, just because the Western world is
Well,
more advanced than the rest of the world. We get a lot of the spotlight because we have
right.
more advancements going on, whether
Well,
or that if that's hatred, if that's jealousy,
mhm.
whatever. What has some of these other cultures done in the 2000 years they've been able to do something? What are these other cultures
Well,
doing?
you know what's going to
This,
happen, don't
Melissa,
you?
this is what I'm trying to get at, is that the spotlight's on us. It's been on us because we somehow have risen to a standard where we want
Challenge.
our
Yeah.
neighborhoods to be safe. We want our kids to be safe. We want to educate them. We want to get into the arts and literature and architecture. This is just a laurel in our culture that they say we don't have. And
Yeah.
so we are somehow hated, but we have not stopped anyone else from doing this. You can do it. Look at Japan. Japan excels at high culture. Japan is a absolutely high culture and a country, and there are other countries that excel as well. In fact, Dubai could be used as an
Yeah.
example of high culture, but for some reason we are the target. And I apologize for taking up the time. What were you going to say?
No, it's okay. It's all good. I think one of the tactics that I see that's really blatant is they always funnel back to like Germany and Hitler and that kind of ethno pride. Whereas in America, we're not doing this ethno thing. We're just doing straight up, I love my country. I want it to be strong for everybody else and I want a good economy. They're trying to conflate that to Hitler's sort of weird, strange thing that he was doing. And it's not even remotely the same thing. And so the minute you say anything about white, they're literally guilting you with a crime you never did and you
Yeah.
weren't responsible for and that we actually fought against.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I believe England and my husband's German, but I mean, a lot of German people, my stepfather, they didn't vote for Hitler and they were thrown in concentration camps. So, and England and Canada and United States, I believe we all fought against Hitler. So what the hell?
Well,
But they
and
always
see,
throw that at us.
of course they're going to throw that at us because it's ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. That's what's making this so clown-like. Everything they're throwing at us is ridiculous, and that's been part of the strategy here, I think, is to just see how much crap we'll take. And we seem to be, in general, taking a lot of crap. I am seeing counter movements happening. I am seeing people standing up in lots of ways. There are many ways to stand up, and what we're doing by just having a conversation, which is radical. We should in America be able to have free speech conversations. We're not in here slandering individuals. We're not promoting violence. Right. Nope. We're just trying to talk about what is actually going on in the world around us. And yet this is absolutely a taboo subject. So that's where we're at. And this is part of what standing up looks like. No, I do not accept the fact that I'm not allowed to talk about this. I am going to talk about it. If anything, I am going to talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it as much as I want, because at some point in that 100 years down the road, when somebody on their family tree is looking back and saying, I've got a little bit of this in me, and they look at like, well, how did it come to this? How did it come to this? And they look back, and maybe there's some stories of people that stood up and were talking and were saying, no, you can't cross over into my yard. No, you can't take my house. No, you can't take the sweat of my hard labor by taking all my money through thuggery, taxes, and not even be a federal organization. Tax me every which way. Take away everything through eminent domain. If we don't call that slavery, I don't know what is. Why is this slavery thing so misconstrued? Because what we are living in is straight up slavery. And I'm talking about it.
Yeah, it is. It is slavery. Do you have anything to add, Jer?
I agree.
Well, it is slavery. Taxation is slavery.
It's an open wall prison.
And it's
and pretty soon we're going to be in 15-minute cities and not allowed to leave unless we scan our code and it says we've been good little children.
What did they call 15-minute cities back in the German days? Oh, ghettos. That's right. They were called ghettos.
Oh, they were called ghettos.
No, they weren't.
They were, though. They confined people to small neighborhoods, to small areas that they couldn't get out of. They had everything they needed in them. How's that different from a 15-minute city, Jared?
Okay.
You need to have papers.
The smart city and the 15-minute city is just market it better.
They're
cleaner and nicer.
Their whole plan to get us into those is not going well, because a lot of it hinges on the phasing out of fossil fuels, which is proving difficult since like 90% of the world runs on it. And electric vehicles aren't going to cut it, and solar and wind power aren't going to cut it. So until they have better tech, there's no way they can even move forward.
But that's why that's the whole thing with these 15-minute cities or smart cities is that's all controlled. And they obviously don't care about the carbon narrative, because they're still jet setting around. They're still using a fossil fuel, and we shouldn't call them fossil fuels, but they're still using petrol to spark up and charge everyone's 45-minute Tesla that has,
Yeah.
I mean, this is
the thing about the carbon, though. It's always been a red herring, because carbon dioxide occurs naturally. Everyone exhales it. Plants absorb it. The ocean absorbs it. It's in a natural balance here. The carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is like 0.04%. There's very little carbon dioxide. Yeah. If it drops down to 0.03%, all life on Earth dies. So
a little extra is okay.
a little extra is okay. Nor has there ever been any proven science to show that increased carbon dioxide from 0.04% is harmful to the climate. And
Yeah.
the climate is not the weather. And whatever. You know the whole thing's a scam. It's all about control. It's all about installing world tyranny, getting that one world government. I mean, that's what it's all about.
If you are non-human, if you're non-human and you need to be in bodies that can get around in this environment,
Exactly.
then that works. But once they don't need us, which it appears that they're getting close to, which is why we're having a violent delights experience, and they'll keep us in the little habitats, the ones that they keep in habitats with the needs we need, as far as oxygen levels, etc. Little terrariums.
And then
I think
terraform the
it's gonna.
rest of the
I
planet.
honestly think it's gonna collapse in on them. I think they're so ideological and fantastical. I think they're gonna be in for a surprise.
We're talking about at most 1,000 people
1,000 people what?
Look,
running things
2030
No, see,
seems
this
to
is
be.
I
Go
disagree
ahead.
with this
at
wholeheartedly.
the very top. At the very top.
No, I disagree. I see them on the streets. I'm seeing infiltrated humans on the street. I did not see them 4 years ago like this. I think they have infiltrated the top layers of all the governments and moved down. They did not go from up to down. They moved down. Now they're in the police sector. Now they're in the population sector, and they're walking freely amongst us. But that's, this is why I get called a doom queen, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm encountering strange people, and I'm encountering those dead eyes, and I'm seeing them around. And it's not even hard to see them if you're looking for them. And this is
reminding me of They Live.
It's very They Live, or again, invasion scenario, invasion of the body snatchers. Yeah. It's very that. But the best template that works for me, Melissa, is the Westworld template. And think about the Western world's what's under siege, and then if you juxtaposition that with 1899, this starts working with this whole idea of the 144. This starts working with the idea of advanced robotics that are humanoid, more human than human. This starts to pull in some of the Philip K. Dick stuff, and because in the new Westworld, except for they wouldn't let us see the season 5, these things are basically they're organic. They you cut them, they bleed, you can kill them like you can kill a human. They have a pod thing in their brain. They actually have brains that are running their systems, right, like ours, and they have this pod of consciousness where their consciousness is housed, and they just they take those out, and they basically have like a big data center that looks like a Dyson sphere. And you have to see the series from beginning to end. You actually need to see it from beginning to end and get away from the idea of robots. And it makes a lot of sense. It's a template that makes sense. And so if you think about what are these iterations that are hardwired with us, with reincarnation and all this stuff? What is all this stuff? Well, we start tearing apart our own mythologies, and we start really looking at what is the core of this mythology? Where did this mythology come from? And you do it with an open mind, and this stuff kind of on the table with it, it starts to gel and it starts to look very plausible. But then I can back down and say, yes, They Live and Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Morgellons as the mycelium, etc.
So 2030 seems to be a big goal year for them. And I'm wondering, Exactly. Like, what is there something special about that year, or is it just a random thing they planned, or is it is there something ritual to it? Because I know these guys like numbers and rituals, and I see some,
It's the new 2021. It's just the year they picked. The 2030 date, I think, is just because it's a new decade for one. But it's also part of the whole Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, Agenda 2030.
Yeah, it's completely UN oriented.
Yeah.
2021 was local. 2030 is global. If you
And
want
they
to
have
say
a
global,
2050. They have a 2050 agenda as well.
2030 is 5. So we have the pentagram. We have the we pull up to the Westworld narrative, and so there's a whole bunch to this question that could be really looked at and unpacked. The thing is that there's agendas before that. There's a Masonic agenda for 2026 that I've known about since I was a little kid. And there is then a lot of people talking about 2025. A lot of these big name controllers have used 2020.
The Deagle thing too.
All the Deagle. There's pages and volumes of 2025 for taking it all out. And then what more recently and more importantly is the ecliptic movement from 2017 to 2024, which we're about to see the end of that ritual on April 8th. And that's what the kickoff is. The ritual will be over. The ritual's the ritual. The actual happening happens after the ritual, if you know anything about magic. And so that's going to be coming to a close. The Kona power, all of it, that's happening now. It's going to be closed in April 8th. And then...
So it's the prestige?
Well, you could look at it that way. It's definitely going to kick it off. And then that's when you've got all these people talking about 2025, the Masons with 2026. 26 is the most undercovered occult number I've ever encountered. And everyone has it. It's a big number because it's 8. And 8 is infinity, and etc. You could just go on. It just never gets any airtime. It's like the redheaded stepchild. And so 2030 is when they want to make it absolutely everything is ironed and shut. The Iron Curtain's around us by 2030. So if you think about where we are now, this is just a few years, and there's a lot that has to happen between them. And the main ritual, which is taking down America, which was an idea, a thought experiment, with the X marks the spot over us here, that is what's happening right now. That's the big ritual. We have to fall for the rest of the dominoes to get played.
Yes. Wow. That's crazy. That is, it's just so disturbing. I didn't mean for the show to get so, apocalyptic, guys, but I didn't have a plan, and I did say it was called Meandering into the Darkness. But I'm always wondering,
come on,
like,
who's
there always has to be light.
Who's never ready for doom porn? Come on.
Is everyone upset and afraid?
No, I think okay, so I think a lot of people, they're just realizing they are, because they're going to want to cling to familiar things like that. I mean, I like things from their childhood before they actually realized what was going on, I think there's a lot of people who are going to be afraid.
And the thing is, they want us afraid, and we got to stop being afraid, because you came in here and you knew you were going to die anyway. And they've taken away our dreams. They've taken away just the taxation here. They've taken away what else can they take away? So it's time to turn the fear into something useful. It's an energy. They're using it off of us. They're taking our fear and using it. And so just because, some of us have been trying to talk about this for a long time, I get worried too, and I have moments of paranoia too, because I don't want this. To see, this is the thing. I don't want any of this reality at all. I'm appalled by it, I'm offended by it, and I'm also really put off by it. I want my beautiful garden. I want to be able to have lunch with the people I love and wear fun clothing and go dance and do the stuff I love. I want the lovely life. I don't want this that's being served to us. But that doesn't change what's being served to us. And they put it into overdrive when they threw us all on lockdown. And that's when it became very clear that they're going to do what they want, how they want, when they want. And we showed them that no matter what they did, we weren't big enough to override them, and we weren't. And that was part of the litmus test. So here we are. We're deeper down the pike. We're further into the woods, and it is beyond the tipping point. We're beyond the tipping point. So I don't know what to say. How's your 2024 going? Because the tax season here in America is crazy, and and people I know are dying left and right. All of a sudden, strange, crazy, unique cancers, and this and that, and and
What
we're
could be
being
causing all the
flooded.
cancers?
Right. Well,
I don't know.
nobody wants to address that. And then we're being
Baffling. I'm
flooded with
baffled.
the absolute best of the best coming into the Western world to enhance our countries. All of the convicts and the murderers and the cartels and all that. We're just letting them in. And not only that, in some states here in America, we're giving them $10,000 a month on top of health care, on top of housing, and they're still complaining. And meanwhile, our own citizens in all these countries, we're all suffering, and they're taxing us to death, and they're not taxing these mother effers. And so I don't know where you are hiding if you're seeing a sunny side of the street, but I have come into the conversations with New Age thinking that just appalls me, where they're going to make their happy bubble, and in their happy bubble, everything's all right while the rest of the world's falling apart. I'm sorry, I'm not creating this. Melissa, are you creating this in your happy little bubble? Your bubble might be happy,
No.
but do you see it in the world?
I see it in the world, and I mean, I have people. I've got a good audience on X, and I have liberal people attack me all the time because they're like, they're poor. Like, they make all these really crazy excuses that they obviously watch on MSNBC about why everyone's coming in, and they're like, they're not giving them this, they're not doing that. You're just a liar. You're a liar. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, you know what? I don't normally say this to people, but since you're so stupid, and usually people don't actually react until something really affects them right in the face, I hope they show up at your door.
And they
Really.
will. And they
Look
will.
at the cancel the cops crap. People are like, yeah, stop the cops, defund the police. And then once they get robbed and mugged and no police are around because they want to defund them, they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't defund them. How about that?
Well, look at these little towns where they're overriding the natural population there. And this is the story all over the Western world. There's a town of 5,000, and then they'll put in 6,000 immigrants. And of course, they're all generally young men. What do you think if you've got young girls? And some of these men that are coming from countries where it's their right to rape women, especially little girls. They marry little girls. They don't think anything's wrong with it, and their God gives them props for it. So what do you think's going to happen to your little kids in a town now where you've been sieged? And
Are you
now they're
talking about
also
that Italian island?
No, I'm talking about normal places here in the United States.
In
I know
Texas.
people
Okay.
I know towns in Iowa that are overrun like this. I know towns in Appalachia that are overrun like this. I know towns all over the United States. People are telling me we had 500 people there, and now we've got, I don't know, 3,000 people, and they're all
Well, we
immigrant men. And it's like, well, these are generational towns, and now what are they going to do? They've lost. They've lost. And when your children can't go out to play without being terrified of being raped or murdered or belittled or whatever, this is a siege. We are not only under siege, we are now occupied. And I think it's important for us to start actually wrapping our mind around it, because how much later does it have to be? How much darker does it have to get?
Yeah. They have to be chopping our heads off in the street.
And they've been doing that for a while. Minnesota certainly has stories like that.
We all have George Soros and his Open Society Foundation. He's a psychopath. I know I hear Elon Musk out him left, right, and center about this, talking about this going down to the border. We have him and his psychotic son to thank for a lot of this because they are literally bringing them in. I seen Laura Loomer going and looking at this and researching islands where they're bringing them in from. Biden just admitted to flying in 320,000 illegal immigrants, and
Yep.
there's Chinese spies coming in.
Yes, the Chinese
I mean,
too.
come on.
And Middle Eastern people.
Oh yeah, it's Pakistan, all this. Like I
all
said,
the countries
we're
bombing have people coming here.
All the country, but then all the all the people in prisons in South America coming up. Like I said, 1 in 7 people right now in America is an immigrant of what they're called. These people, 1 in 7. This is a government stat I looked at. I have a screenshot. I've been screenshotting everything. You have to screenshot everything now. And AI takes less than 30 seconds to wipe and change a story. You cannot rely on your search engines. The best one I use is the Yandex, and I think I heard that from you, Melissa. Did I hear that from you?
I don't know. I've been using this one called Brave lately.
No, maybe it wasn't
good or not.
I thought it was on this panel.
I told you about Yandex.
Jerry, did you? Anyway, I'm enjoying.
Is it Russian,
that one.
Isn't it?
Yes, and it gives me the best results.
I wanted to kind of go into Russia and stuff because they seem to be more pro their own culture than we are. They seem to be more aware of it. And China as well. So are they like thinking this is a good thing, what's happening to America? Are they happy? Because I'm seeing the rise of civilizations rather than globalism all over. Right?
Putin has come out many times saying that it's insane what's going on. Like diversity is going to kill your country, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, remember back in the old days because now everyone can criticize Israel without. There's too many people criticizing Israel. They can't just knock you out individually like they used to. But Israel was the flagship for having a major wall, for keeping an Israeli majority, for being extremely racist towards Black people especially. And yet when we were talking about having a border, when we were talking about keeping America for Americans, and that people come in the right way, and what are you offering? How are you going to make America, how are you going to add to the culture instead of separate it? Remember Israel out there. And I kept saying, why is it all right for Israel to do it, but nobody else can? And then we were getting heavily criticized by Israel for not allowing open borders and all this stuff. So this is the thing. Everyone else can do it, but the Western world can't. And another thing of logic, and just points of logic, if you are a Muslim migrant fleeing from somewhere, there is a major amount of land in the Middle East and in Africa that's Muslim. Why wouldn't you logically house these people with other people that hold the same values? I've never understood that. You do that in school. I've seen that in schools. You would house people with familiar people and familiar customs to get them out of dangerous way, but also in places where they are going to hold those same values, instead of putting these different it's not working. It's oil and water, and they don't want to blend in. They're not trying to blend in, and they're making it very clear they're not blending in. The Chinese have been buying up American soil, businesses, water for decades. The ones that are coming in now, what are they doing? We should ask this question. And how much land and businesses in America is actually Chinese owned? We should know these stats, because
they own most of California. I bet you they own all of San Francisco.
And why are they allowed to is a better question.
And that's the thing. Why are we selling off our land and all this to foreign countries? See, this has been long in the making. This has been a long thing happening. It did not just start 4 years ago. They have been gearing us towards this takedown for a very long time, and now we're just getting closer to the boiling point, the frogs in the cauldron, and when it's a little bit too hot to get out, when everyone's now starting to realize, oh my God, the water's getting too hot, but now I'm too tired and I can't jump out.
Yeah. It's so crazy. It's so insane. I don't even have words for it, because you'd actually you'd have to be demon possessed. You'd have to be a psychopath. You'd have to hate. A lot of these people that are pushing this and getting the money, it is actually their own culture they're destroying too. That you'd have to be possessed. You'd have to think that elitism is its own class. You would have to have no connection or soul whatsoever to your own people.
The thing too that always seemed really poignant to me is, if we and there are good examples. So all these immigrants, if you will, these young means, that seem to just hate the Western world and Western ways and all this, and apparently need help, and we could relocate them somewhere. And yet the argument was always the money to relocate them. But then we find $100 billion to give to Ukraine. Then we find the money to give all these immigrants $10,000 a month on these cards, $1,200 at the base, all the EBT like, we find the money when we need to find the money, because the money is not the story here, and it never has been. And so this is leading up to a crescendo that is not going to be fun for us, but there are people, these things that are non-human, that are absolutely got their popcorn and they're watching the show. This will break down into something very ugly. We've already seen it with the Obama film, and then the commercials for Civil War that are coming out right around the time of the closing of the ecliptic ritual, and they're sowing the seeds everywhere, absolutely everywhere. This is going to be a grand show, and it's going to look like The Purge.
Yeah. Wow. Jerry, we're just kind of talking about
side convo.
Darkest before. Well, okay. I want to go through that though.
I was just reinforcing
the darkest. Yeah. How it's always gets really dark before triumph. Like you could see, and you have to keep that hope, and you have to keep people invigorated and proud. We have to not let people get demoralized.
Yeah, I think, and that saying is true, and I think until enough people wake up, there's not going to be a lot of change. Or not wake up, such a bad term, it's overused. Until people realize what's really going on, and how their lives will be affected in the future, nothing's going to change. It's just going to be real slow. I think it's going to take off, though, for sure. It already has been over the last 4 years. The last 4 years have been very revealing about governments and government agencies and how corrupt everything is.
They don't need to take guns to us.
No,
they don't need to do that, because it's new warfare. World War III is already happening.
It's fourth generation warfare.
It's absolutely. It's technology. It is really the warfare here.
And if they do have directed energy weapons,
and they do,
all they have to do is sizzle a few places, sizzle a farm, sizzle some beef, cattle, whatever. That's all they have to do, unless we, wrap America up in blue tarpaulin, which
I couldn't find that video, by the way.
I'm getting a tarp hat. I really am. I'm getting a blue
I've
tarp
been seeing
hat.
those, Melissa, people
seriously, no. Fuck the aluminum. It's not good for you anyways.
You need get a whatever color blue MAGA hat.
Oh yeah. Like, sorry, Trump. I got blue. I know that's a Democrat color, but I think they're wearing it to protect themselves.
So I think that, the thing is, we, I'm personally struggling with the weight of all this, and how terrible it all is. Like I said earlier, and I don't want this at all, any of this. I'm terrified for all my friends' children. Melissa, I know you have children. Jerry, I know you have children. I'm terrified for the future of our race too. I'm terrified for all of this in a way that is profound and has no words, because I see it happening. Here's where my hope comes in. I do have a thread of hope because I am seeing people standing in weird, strange ways. I know that in America, when they start trying to make big moves, there's a lot of Americans they're going to be running up against that are not having it, and they're going to find that out the hard way. I don't know. All wars have uncertain outcomes, and we all know that. We don't know how this is actually going to go, but the thing is, we need to not get down in the dumps with it. We need to be mad as hell, and in that anger, direct it effectively, efficiently, and at the right time. Timing is everything, and these things that are running this situation, running this war right now, they're using timing to their advantage. And so that's the thing. Also, we cannot get proper comms going when they are monitoring us through Li-Fi, through everything now, all of our tech. When we were locked in, they rebuilt our world. They rebuilt it with roundabouts. They rebuilt it with 5G. 5G is an old school technology now to keep people, and it can kill you, but it can be a moat, and it can keep you out of something or push you into something. And then that's old school. That's old school. So I know, like I said earlier, I have been seeing people take out 5G towers with actual lasers. I've seen the videos, they're doing it. I see little bits of stuff happening. I'm counting on what the system would call the black hats. I'm what I call the white hats. I'm counting on those people that still can get in there and mess with it. I don't think that all AI is bad AI, just because I'm a case by case person. And so I'm not throwing in the towel, because throwing in the towel means that we've given up, and I'm not giving up because I'm still drawing breath, apparently. So this is a thing, and if you don't want to think about it for yourself, please think about it for the future of our children, because somewhere down the line there will be a look back. There is a rear view mirror. Time is a very funny thing. It is the biggest lie in this realm, but there will be a point where we are held accountable for what we did and did not do. And that could just be your own conscience when you are dying. But I think there's a spiritual side to this, and I think there's a bigger spiritual side to this. And I think those of us with the zinc spark that came through natural wombs into this realm have that zinc spark. We are connected to something glorious. You can call that whatever you want, the Most High, but it is in us. You can go left hand path with it, you can go right hand path with it. I don't care what you call it. It's something that these things that are running the show don't have, and it's a soul. It's your spirit. It is the light behind your eyes, and they want it. They don't like us for it, and they are using it against us.
That's right. And they don't like the fact that we actually, biblically, if you go to God, we have the power to create another being. And these things don't have that power.
Another being
magic.
With the spark,
it is truly
Melissa,
spiritual.
With the spark, the zygote spark, that is actually embedding divine essence. It has divine essence. It is the spark of God, whatever you want to call that. They can't do that. They can make fake wombs. They can clone. They can make all the synthetic beings they want, but they don't have that thing that we have. And that's what seems really absolutely crystal clear to me.
Yes. And so to finish this off, does God ever come down, or Michael, or whatever biblically, does God ever come down and do a smackdown?
He's
Is God
come down
even
through
real?
us. He's come down through
Mm,
us. And if we step away
of
from
course.
understanding and thinking we know what that is, because that's
Mhm.
hubris, we are that. It's in you, Melissa. It's in your child. It's in you, Jerry. It's in your children. It's in me. It's in our animals we love. You know when you encounter the Holy of Holies. It's in us. And that's what I'm saying. All these people with the dead eyes out there, all these
The
non-humans,
NPCs.
they are very much evident when you look at them. So that's the way in which it comes. That's what I'm saying about the whole satanic thing. It's the system is Satan. Well, we are the we are the saviors of ourselves. We have the divine spark. We were gifted with it. That light, that smokeless flame in us is, if you want to use the Christian terms, God coming down. And that is at play.
Excellent. Well, guys, I'm going to tie this up, and I love that you came on. And I mean, right now we have 948 people live. I never had that many before. I want to
Wow.
thank everybody who's here live. I also encourage you to go in the show notes. All of Jer NIISH's links are there, but I encourage you to subscribe to their channel on YouTube. They run a show. They used to run a show called Nox Mentee. Now they run a show called The Obelisk. I also encourage you to subscribe on all my platforms, which will be in the show notes. Also at Make 70s Great. I'm going to be live streaming little mini shows soon here that'll be in mobile format, and there'll just be more news, not ghostly archives. So if you are following me at Make 70s Great, you'll see that. And please go and check out Jer NIISH's content on their channels and subscribe, share, like our content. And if you're ever on a audio podcast, be sure to 5-star our content. That helps us show up. Any last words, Jer NIISH, before I close it out?
No, thank you for having us. It's been a great chat.
Realize
We love
that
coming and talking to you.
we love you.
Aww,
And
thank you.
if you're listening to us and you're inspired by us, you might very well be that resistance that is needed. You have the holy spark within you, so shine bright. This little light, baby.
Excellent. Well, everybody.
Time to level up, folks.
There you go. Thank you guys all for coming to the stream. I'm just going to put up, my husband's watching. He says it's all of us. That's why it's important to raise your vibes. That's why they try to manipulate our emotions. I couldn't say it better. Thank you so much, everybody. I will be back next week. I have a good lineup throughout, I believe, Thursday next week. I'm having Anthony Tyler from Black Hoodie Alchemy podcast coming on. I can't remember what we're talking about, but it'll probably be esoteric. Anyways, guys, thanks a lot. I will catch you guys next week, and I'm going to be doing little mini live streams, so make sure to subscribe to the X channel. Cheers.